Good afternoon, gentlemen. This is Mr. Hale, and I'm going to continue working through Pygame tutorial 5, where I'm adding images and controlling them either using the keyboard or a mouse. Okay, so I think what I'll do to keep the tutorials a little bit shorter is for this first segment, I'm going to show you how to add an image and control it using the mouse. And the second part, I will add a different image and I will control that using the keys, just to break it up a little bit. Okay, so let's just pick up kind of where we left off. So let's run this program, and you see that we have two pieces of text that we've added, and one is moving automatically. We're updating the position in the while loop, and the other one is the mouse, and that is the mouse text is being controlled by the mouse. Okay, and we've learned how to use a print statement to print off the position of the mouse, just so that we know where things are, and we know that things are working and registering and all those things. Okay, so I'm going to stop that. Now, first of all, because for this first segment, I'm going to add an image, right? It's kind of like adding a little cursor, and I'm going to use the mouse to control that image. So first, I might as well kind of rename my mouse text. Okay, so let's just call it sample title. And what we're going to do is we're going to center that title 400 and 0, okay, for the height. Okay, and what I want to do here is instead of calling it mouse text, we'll call it title text. Okay, actually, you know what, I'm not going to play with that naming convention right now because I don't want to focus too much on editing all that stuff. What I really want to focus on is adding the image. Okay, but just to update that, just so that the mouse position, we had the mouse position being updated to match the mouse text. So what I'm going to do is just comment that out so that that doesn't get updated. Okay, and then we can run it. Okay, and you'll see that we have our sample title, and that's supposed to be in the center of the page. Now if we increase our window size and move things around like this, eventually you would see that that should be in the middle, but I think what happens is it starts in the middle and then moves left. So to get that actually centered, you might have to play with that a little bit. Okay, but for now that's okay. That's good enough for what we need it for. It's no longer using the coordinates of the mouse position, so I'm okay with that. Okay, so I'll stop that program running, and what I want to do is I want to start adding a new section for images. So I have my text stuff up here, and I'm going to start adding my images. So my image images. Okay, and so I'm going to I started talking about naming conventions. From the beginning, what I'd like to do is kind of introduce a naming convention for our images, because we might be adding a whole bunch. Okay, so for this first one, I will call it example image. Okay, but I really want you to think about following this pattern. Okay, so pygame dot image dot load, and then in brackets we need to include the name of the image. Okay, now remember in the last tutorial I created the cursor. Okay, so let's go, and I'm going to up here, this is all our files. I have to make sure that my image is there. Okay, so I'm going to go to upload a file, and remember I saved it to my desktop and I called it my handcursor.png. Okay, that's my edited image. Okay, so now that my handcursor.png is there, I can add it as the title, right? Exactly, handcursor.png. Now in my in my, I have a space in my name. If you want to go up here and hit rename, you can, if you want to stick to camel case, you can delete that and say handcursor.png, but just make sure whatever you rename it as, you also rename it in here. They have to match exactly, or else it won't be able to find the file in your little package. Okay. Just like we did for text, every image has to have an example image size. Okay, so we're going to use that get size. So I'm going to say my example image, and I'm going to use my get underscore size. Okay, and we're using that again. That's going to come into play as we're bumping into the borders and things like that, and keeping our images within the confines of our screen. Okay, and the last thing I want to do is start defining our x and y coordinates for our images. Now, one thing I did in the written tutorial that I'd like to kind of correct here is I'm going to start off with our little naming convention. Okay, so this is image 1. Okay, and so I'm going to have my image 1 right size, and then I can say my coordinates are going to be for x image 1, okay, and y image 1, okay, and to be honest, this is going to make your life a lot simpler once we start to getting into writing code for intersection. Okay, as I start introducing more images, what I have here is a keyword, right? And then I know that's image 1. And then I have my keyword and then image 1 size. So, as you start adding more images, you can stick to this convention, and it will help with duplicating some of the code that you have, okay? And it'll make things easier once you start adding more things. Okay, so make sure you have your example image 1 updated as well right here. Okay, so there you go. Now I have an image, and what I need to do is I need to display it. Okay, so what we can do, just like we did with our x image, x mouse text and or y mouse text, and we grab the mouse position. What we want to do is update this statement that I commented out to match the x image 1 position, okay, and the y image 1 position. So y image 1, okay, and now our y image 1 and our x image 1 are grabbing the mouse position. Okay, so that's great. So it'll follow things around. Okay. And I can actually run this. So let's just run this. Oh, actually, I haven't displayed it yet. So the one thing I do need to add is make sure that I add a blitz statement. Okay, and I'm going to add this just under here, and then I'm going to go my screen dot blit. Okay, screen dot blit, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to blit my example image 1. And at the position, right, remember I'm giving a set of coordinates here for x image 1 and comma y image 1. Okay, and remember that's a set of coordinate that goes inside those brackets. Okay, and just check, little debugging strategies, making sure that that's indented properly so that you don't get any problems displaying that in your while loop. Okay, now let's just clean up this screen a little bit, and let's run this puppy. Okay, so we have this thing, and you can tell that there's something there, right? And you can see that, oh, our hand is there, but one of the problems is that we have a black hand. Okay, and we have a black background, so we can't see that stuff. So I think what we need to do is start playing with our colors a little bit. So let's stop that, and I can see that the sample title, right, the text is is white. Okay, and white is the RGB color for white is 255. So let's use a 255, right? 255, 255, and 255. Okay. Now, one of the things we might want to do is switch the colors for our sample title so that we can see that. I'm going to run this anyways, and I'll show you what happens. Okay. So now we have a white background, and we can see all this stuff. And that actually works out well because our white background for our hello text is white, and the background text for our sample title is black, and so that makes the white text pop. Okay, and now my cursor is moving, and that works really well. Okay, so that's a nice way to make sure that your images stand out. Okay. Now the last little thing that I want to add here is controlling your images so that they stay within the borders of your frame. Okay. Now we did this for our text, right? And I want to do it as well for our images. Okay. So under here we have our if statements. Okay, and we'll start to add some stuff for images. So if, right, x image, okay, plus x image 1 plus example image 1 size, example image 1 size. Okay, remember that because we're dealing with a list, the first position in the list is our x position. Okay, if that is greater than 600, if that is greater than 800, what we want to do is we want to set x image, that's x image 1, right, equal to 800 minus, right, example image size at, right, in the x position, right? Okay, so the width, basically we're subtracting the width of our x from that 800, so that stays within, right, the border of our screen. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to do the same thing for y. So I'm just going to copy this. Okay, and this is another reason why we stick to the naming convention. It makes duplication of our code that much easier. Control V. And I'm going to edit my own code. So I have my y image and example image 1, and we're dealing with the y direction, and y is 600. Okay. And what we want to say is that y image 1 is equal to, right, 600 minus example image 1 size in the y direction. Okay, so we're going to run that, and you see that as I get close here, right, I'm not going past. Okay, you got to remember that the size of our screen is quite large here, right? There's something about our display there that is a little bit different, but know that, you know, if we're viewing the proper size of our screen, then that's staying within there. I mean, it's also not going to move because as the mouse goes off the screen, it loses contact, and you can see down below that it stops printing that position, so it never really goes beyond. But where that becomes important is if we start adding images that are controlled in different ways. So if I start adding images that are controlled with the keys, or if they're moving around automatically like the hello world text is, what that means is that it'll keep our images within the boundaries of that screen. Okay, and so I'm just setting the tone so that as we start to add images, right, we have a certain convention to follow for each thing that we add. We add the image using this code, okay, have a keyword, and I have my image 1, so the next one I'll use a keyword, right, plus my image 2, right, and then I can update things as I go along. And the next little segment is going to be a little more complicated because I'm going to start introducing the idea of controlling with the keys. Okay, now I hope that helps, and that's a good start for adding images. And we created our own little image here. It's nice and crisp and looks like it's a good size. If you wanted to make that bigger, you could go back into Photoshop, edit the image size, and then you would have to re-import that file, right? Re-upload the file and replace the one that was in there, and then your new edited file would be the one that you would see, and you could increase the size that way. Okay, so I hope that helps. And for the next tutorial, I'll show you how you can move images using the keys. Okay, I hope you're well, and enjoy.